Hey, welcome back to the Lightspeed Lawn Care Marketing Podcast. I am your host, Cody Owen, and I am sitting down today, or I'm standing actually, with my friend Marvin Salcido. He is the owner of Salcido Lawn. He is a serial entrepreneur, and he loves to help other business owners learn more about how they can grow their business. And so today we're going to be talking about fixing your hiring problems. Marvin, thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So for people that don't know you in the audience, let's talk a little bit about your story of growing Salcido and maybe some of the other businesses that have come into your orbit now, just to give people an idea of who you are. Yeah, so I know you're an expert, but we want them to know.
So I've started and built up and ran several multi-million-dollar businesses. From landscaping to an automotive shop and most recently a hot rod shop. I have built several companies from the ground up. I have not always been successful in everything that I've done. I have started a few businesses or taken over a couple of businesses that have failed. And I was able to learn from my mistakes and not repeat those in my future endeavors. Most recently, this current landscape company that I own, I started it over 6 years ago. And in the last 6 years, I've built it from about 100,000 in business to at the end of 2022, we closed out right at 5 million in sales. And then we could just continue to grow from there. And then I have ventured into coaching other businesses and helping business owners to grow their companies, and recently jumped on the speaking circuit and have been going around all over America and speaking at business conferences and helping other business owners. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me.
Yeah. I was really excited when I saw that you were speaking now, because having known you for so many years from my last job and always being able to pick your brain either on a podcast or just when I had a question about something business-wise, I knew I could reach out and you would be willing to help me. So I'm so excited that I'm nervous that maybe you'll have less time to help me if you're helping a bunch of people, but I'm really excited for the impact that you're going to have in our community.
Yes, sir. Most definitely. Hey, I'm always here to help you.
Well, let's jump in and talk a little bit about hiring. Maybe let's talk about a mistake to kick things off. Maybe you've got a hiring horror story for the guys.
So I'll tell you a funny one. I hired a guy one time who supposedly had 8 years of experience in the landscape industry. Didn't vet him much. I just said he had experience and seemed to be a likable guy. Went ahead and hired him. I threw him on a crew, and I figured, I'd let the crew leader let me know how he's doing. And about halfway through the day, the crew leader called me. It's like, dude, you got to come get this guy. And he was like, he doesn't know anything. So I get out there, I go pick him up, and on our way back to the shop, I'm like, so what's going on? I thought you had like 8 years of experience. He's like, I do. I got 8 years of experience. I was like,
I mow my own lawn.
But they said you didn't know how to even like start a weed eater or anything. And he told me, he's like, well, they usually had me like raking leaves and stuff. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You had 8 years of raking experience? Well, yeah. I was like, all right, man.
They started the weed eater for him and handed it to him.
Oh, man. And he's like, so what time tomorrow? I was like, I don't think this is going to work out. So there's a funny one for you.
So chase down the claims made in the interview a little bit.
Yeah. But I have onboarded hundreds of people throughout the years and have learned a lot in the process on how to better vet people, how to interview them properly, what to say, what not to say. My absolute favorite question to ask whenever I am hiring somebody or interviewing them is just simply, so tell me about yourself. And people love to talk about their favorite subject, which is themselves. And many times you will hear about all the skeletons in the closet because they word vomit, and they just tell you anything and everything, whether you need to know it or not. And they'll start confessing, oh, well, you'll see in my background check that I've got a felony and this happened and that happened. And it's like, okay, yeah, all right. Well, mistakes happen, but then they open the door so that you can have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I don't feel like we have talked a lot about interviewing people specifically on the podcast here. So do you want to just kind of walk us through what your interview process looks like?
So first of all, it all depends on the level that we're hiring for. Mm-hmm. On your lower level, your laborers, you don't want to make the process too complicated in order for somebody to be hired on. If you make them jump through too many hoops, at least in my experience, they won't even call you back. Mm-hmm. If they're going to have to send in a resume, if they have to fill out this form online, if they have to email this and send a blood sample and whatever else, they're not going to do it because they know that the company down the street will hire them, no questions asked or very few questions. And it's just the market that we have been in over the past couple of years is very employee friendly, and they do have the upper hand in a lot of ways because they know that they can just go right down the street and they'll get hired on. So,
and kind of your highest competition area, you want to have the least friction in the hiring process.
Yes. You do still want to vet them. You do want to make sure that they are, that they can do the job that you're asking for. And a lot of ways that you can do that is they don't even know that they're going through this process. So whenever you bring them into the office, you can have them sit down and wait for you. Have them wait for a little longer than you normally would. Have them wait for 15 or 20 minutes because you're in a meeting and you want to see how they're going to respond to just sitting around and waiting. Are they going to play around on their phone? Are they going to read the book that you have sitting on the table? And matter of fact, and I learned this from Libby, and if you haven't had her on your podcast, you need to get her on your podcast. But talked with Libby about this, and you have put a book together or a pamphlet or something about your company and have it sitting on the little coffee table in the waiting room, and say, hey, here's some information about our company. If you'd like to look it over while you're waiting, and then see if they actually look at it. Are they willing to dive in and read about your company? Or are they just going to kind of skim through it and move on? Well, that tells you about their character. Are they willing to read and research and learn about your company? Another thing that you can do is intentionally leave trash on the floor of the waiting room. See if they pick it up or not.
That's a Disney original.
It is. But you leave trash on the floor. See if they actually pick it up, or do they just kind of walk around it or kick it under the table? How are they going to respond to that? Are they going to take the initiative to pick it up and throw it away? You can ask them for their drink order. Would you like some water or coffee? And then bring them the wrong thing and see how they're going to respond to it.
Y'all are playing 3D chess over here. This is good. This is good stuff.
You have to. And hey, I wish I could say that I all this is my idea. I stole a lot of this from Libby. If they ask for coffee with sugar and cream, just bring them black coffee or bring them water instead, and see how they're going to respond to that. And all this tells you about their character and who they are. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes down to the questions, I want to know about you. Tell me about yourself. What is your experience? Who are you? questions that you want to stay away from. You don't want to say, hey, are you a family man? Are you a family woman? You don't want to say, do you go to church? Are you religious? Anything like that. You want to stay very neutral and ask questions that pertain to the job. Another thing that you can do is ask them tell me something about yourself that you're proud of. And,
Yeah.
and then just find out, let them brag about themselves a little bit and see what they brag about. Are they bragging about that they are excited because they just became a U.S. citizen, or did they help a old lady across the street, or are they just happy because they beat the new Call of Duty movie or game that came out? How are they going to respond to this? And all this tells about who they are as a person. So those are a lot of the questions that I like to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is interesting because in high school and college, I worked all through at like restaurants, and I've, been interviewed by several restaurant managers, and I've never been asked a question even remotely like that. I think the most common thing that I got was like, I think it was because they had seen it in movies, was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's like, well, not working at Sweet Tomatoes anymore. Like, that's what it was just like a question that was so ambiguous. It was like, well, yeah, I intend to go to college. I'm a junior in high school and I've got like plans to do that. But,
Yeah.
you're asking a 16-year-old, or, I know in the lawn care case, the age is a little higher than that. Y'all aren't usually throwing 16-year-olds on zero turns. But
No.
you're asking an 18, 19-year-old, like, where do you think you're going to be in 5 years? He probably doesn't know where he's going to be on Friday. Like,
No, they don't. They forgot about lunch, and they're going to have to eat that day. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
When you are talking to someone and they're telling you about themselves, what can you give us an example of, like, you ask that kind of open-ended question and someone responds in a way that you're like, ooh, yeah, I want to bring this person on. What does that look like?
So I want to find out: are they a driven person? Do they think for themselves, or am I going to have to micromanage them because they're not willing to do anything to push themselves forward?
Mm-hmm.
How do they deal with daily life? And asking an open-ended question like that allows them to brag about themselves. And I want to know what their accomplishments are. I want to know who they are, what they are, why they are, where they plan on going. And when you ask them, who are you? Another question I really like asking is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I asked business owners that. I asked people this past week. I was just speaking at a conference in Vegas, and I was going up to business owners and asking them, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And it's such a probing question because a lot of people have never thought that far into the future, and it
Yeah.
forces them to think, okay, what am I doing with my life, and is this going to push me towards my end goal? I know
Yeah.
what I want to be when I grow up. I know where I want to head in life. And I'm starting it now, 10, 15, 20 years before I'm getting over there. But what I'm doing now is leading me to my end game.
Mm-hmm.
And I love helping people. And that's why I do what I do, so that I can help others. And so when I ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? That tells that, hopefully that opens up that door and tells me what kind of person they are. Because I want to know, are you a happy person? Or are you Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh? Is the glass always half empty? I mean, half empty? You know,
Mm-hmm.
are you always looking down on the world, or do you have a great attitude? Do you have a good outlook on life? And if you have a great attitude and you're a driven person, if you don't know the skills, I can teach you those skills. I want to know who you are. What is your character? Who are you as a person? And if you have the right character behind you, I can teach you how to mow. I can teach you how to weed eat. I can teach you the skills that you need in the office. I want to know those things that you can't teach. And that's, what is your character? Are you a happy person? Did you come into the interview with a smile on your face? Do you look professional, or do you look like you just woke up and rolled off the couch in your pajamas? If you show up to the interview and you look like you dug your clothes out of the dirty clothes bin, that's not a good look, because we're a professional company. Even our guys that are going out and that are servicing the properties, we still hold a professional image. We wear an actual uniform, and I don't want somebody showing up that, looks like that they just don't care.
Yeah.
Because we do care. And so I want, if I want to see how you're going to take care of yourself, because I know if that you're going to project a professional image in and of yourself, then that's going to translate to the job.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking for. It's those things that I can't teach you.
Yeah. So let's talk to the smaller business right now. There's a business owner out there I know that's listening to this that, they have one or two crews and they're staring down the barrel of the spring rush and they're like, Marvin, I don't have time to play three-dimensional chess with every applicant. We've got to get people in the door. Like, what would you say to that person? It feels a little short-sighted to me, but it's also
I
a person I made
understand.
up.
And hey, I've been there. Sometimes you just need boots on the ground. You need a warm body out there to help with the work. We've been there. Matter of fact, it probably ends up happening in my business every year, whether we mean to or not. But to the best of your ability, try and find out who they are as a person before you send them out with the crews. Just, like I said, hey, tell me about yourself. What's something that you're proud of? All this can be done in a 5 or a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah.
And as much as possible, I try to meet with the person in person and not do a phone interview, because I can't see how you're going to respond to my questions over the phone. I want to see what your response is, what the look on your face is. How are you going to respond to the questions that I'm asking you? Do you look frustrated because I'm asking you questions? Or you're like, that's a great question. This is who I am, or this is what I want to do, or this is something, does your face light up when I ask you, what's something that you're proud of that you've done? How does your face light up whenever you get to brag about yourself? Or do you even have anything at all that you're proud of that you've done? So all that can be done just in a few minutes conversation. Another thing I do like to do is we try to set up our interviews for first thing in the morning. Because if you can't show up on time for an interview early in the morning, that tells me you're not going to be able to show up for work on time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Marvin, where can people find you online? Where do you want to be found?
Where do I want to be found? You can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. Probably Instagram is probably the best. And it's at Marvin Salcido. That's MarvinSalcido. And I also have a website that will be being published very soon. And it is growmybiz.coach.
Cool.
So,
yeah, we'll have a link to both of those in the description of this episode. Hey, if you are listening and this was helpful to you, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like. Make sure you're subscribed. This is the kind of content that we make on this channel. If you are listening in a podcast app, please leave us a rating and a review, 5 stars. And Marvin, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I look forward to having you back in the future.
Absolutely.